Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Harley Carnes podcast, Harley on the Headlines. Mighty glad you're there and that you're willing to help us reach out to more people the social media way. Like, subscribe, follow, send some emails. I do appreciate your participation in this program. Well, there go the answers. The alleged killer at Brown University is dead. Took the answers with him. He killed 2 students and an MIT professor last week, and police were slowly but surely tracking him down. When they finally did, they found his body. 48-year-old Claudio Manuel Neves Valente killed himself with his gun inside a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Also in the unit, a satchel with 2 guns and the vehicle they were looking for, seen on video in Providence, Rhode Island. Investigators had his name from the rental agreement for the car in Massachusetts. What we don't know is exactly why. What line of thought sent him to Brown, where he opened fire in an auditorium, killing 18-year-old Mohammed Umarzakov of Uzbekistan and 19-year-old Ella Cook of Birmingham, Alabama. Wounded 9 others, and later to kill, they think, an MIT professor miles away in Brookline, Massachusetts. He had gone to school with the professor in Portugal in the late 1990s. We know Valente had been pursuing a PhD in physics and would surely have known his way around the engineering and physics building where he used his gun or guns. Investigators are sure he did it. They just don't know why. The Brown University killer, Claudio Valente, was from Portugal. He came to the U.S. legally through the Green Card Lottery program, which aimed to bring bright, promising people to America. It was a so-called diversity program. In fact, it was called the Diversity Immigrant Visa Program, and it was started in 1990 with bipartisan support and signed by President George H.W. Bush. On average, 22 million people each year applied to get in. Roughly 50 to 55,000 did each year. That's about 1 in 400. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has announced the suspension of that program by order of the president. The problem with the program is only clear in 2020 hindsight. All you needed to get in, really, was the luck of the draw, not detailed vetting about your qualifications, your dreams, your convictions, and your desire to live a law-abiding life according to American law in the land of the free and the home of the brave. They did have to fill out an application, but with 22 million applications and selections made at random, how perfect could the vetting be? Could have been better, evidently. Another reminder of how dangerous working in mines can be. Anytime you're working deep underground, there are risks. A miner in West Virginia digging coal, hauling coal with those little train cars, has died in an accident. Details not released. It was the Lower War Eagle mine in Wyoming County. Last month, another coal miner died in a flood deep underground. They were working when a pocket of water was struck, and parts of the Rolling Thunder mine in Nicholas County filled with water. Things like that can happen. The miner in that accident died helping others in his crew to escape to safety. His body was found a week later after the water pocket had emptied itself and the water receded. Tough people doing hard work have dug from the ground the fuel source that still to this day powers more electric power plants worldwide than any other source. 35% of all power plants run on coal, according to the International Energy Agency. Natural gas and oil are numbers 2 and 3. Then it's nuclear and hydropower, 4th and 5th. Far down the list, producing a sliver of the world's electricity are wind, solar, bioenergy, and other renewables. The cleanest forms of power, by the way, are nuclear, solar, and hydro. Hydropower is vastly more efficient than solar, but it gets a small ding on the cleanliness question because reservoirs in some regions produce biological matter that can release gases like methane and CO2 through decomposition. Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan is probably going to wind up disbarred. And if she stops being a lawyer, well, guess what? She won't be a judge anymore. She is the judge who helped an illegal immigrant evade arrest and deportation by ICE by showing him out the back door through her chambers, convicted in court of obstructing federal agents doing their job. She didn't deny doing it and was on tape when she did, admitting she was going to get heat for it, and she did. The jury did not convict her on the charge of concealment. A little bit of a puzzle there, but there you go. Dugan could go to prison for 5 years and face fines of $250,000, but she'll appeal the case, and it will go on and on for some time to come. By the way, Customs and Border Protection is having no problem at all with recruitment. A record number of men and women have applied to become an ICE or border agent. A myriad of jobs are available, and they are not just on the Mexican border. Many of their recruits are Latino, Spanish-speaking, from border towns, where their families have had to live with the invasion of illegals across the border for years, and they're sick of it. The Department of Health and Human Services says there will be no more federal tax money spent on mutilation services for attempts to change a child's gender. Proponents of it are upset. They call it gender-affirming care. Now, what it is typically is surgically removing evidence of the sex a person was born into, and more surgery to try to make them look like the other sex. Biologically and genetically, nothing changes. It is an emotional issue. But those kinds of surgical changes are not reversible. And if the emotional component changes, and sometimes it does, particularly if drugs fed to the child stop flowing, then what? That's just the blunt truth of what happens. Now, whether it is morally right or wrong is the subject of the debate, though for the administration there is no debate, not when it comes to children. An adult who wants to try to flip their own biological script has every right to try, but leave the kids alone. Looks like the TikTok sale is a deal. The Trump administration and Congress demanded that TikTok no longer be a puppet of the Chinese government. It had to be sold, majority controlled at least, to an American company or companies, and that is what is happening. A consortium of U.S. companies will own the majority of TikTok, and ByteDance will continue to hold a minority of the hugely popular social media app. The deal has been signed. It is a just meets the letter of the law kind of thing, though. ByteDance, controlled by China, will still own almost half of the company and will have enormous power within it. American companies like Oracle will be responsible for data protection, content moderation, algorithm security, and software. But the truth is, day-to-day operations will tell the tale. It is far from a clean sale of TikTok to American concerns and a scrubbing of Chinese communist influence from it. That's just the truth. We'll have to see how the actual operations pan out. The Board of Trustees of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington have voted to add President Trump's name to the name of the center. It would become the Trump Kennedy Center. But there is just about no way it's going to actually happen because Congress would have to approve it, and Democrats are already having a TDS hissy fit over the idea of it. Trump is credited with saving the building, which needed a lot of work, but he also fired the old board and replaced them with his supporters who voted to put his name on the wall. Like I said, it'll take a big fight on the Hill to make it actually legal. Doesn't mean the signage won't change, at least temporarily. We will see. Literally, we will see. Terrible story out of Statesville Airport, north of Charlotte. A corporate jet, Cessna Citation, crashed in low, foggy conditions and killed all 7 people on board. Former NASCAR racer Greg Biffle, his wife Christina, and their 2 children were on that plane, along with Dennis Dutton, his son Jack, and Craig Wadsworth. They were headed for Florida, and from there on to the Bahamas for a joyous holiday and birthday break. Biffle's company owned the plane. There's no official cause, but the word is the plane took off, stayed pretty low for about 5 miles, then turned back toward the airport and crashed just short of the runway. No word yet why the pilot or pilots, don't know how many people may have been there for the controls. No word why they decided to do that. Now, I've flown my own planes over the years into Statesville. Nothing wrong with the airport. It's a good facility run by some good people. But here's what little we know. We know that they knew there was a problem. Christina Biffle sent a text to her mother that said, "We're in trouble." Greg Biffle was a longtime pilot and has flown hundreds of helicopter rescue and supply flights in areas hard hit by storms and floods, fires, and the like. He's considered a hero in the minds of an awful lot of people. We don't know if he was flying the Citation. Probably was. It was his plane. But the indication is something went wrong with it, and they just didn't quite make it back. Sometimes in New Jersey, if the winter is cold enough, some of the lakes will freeze over, solid enough to drive a car or a pickup truck on. Some have people boring holes through the ice for fishing. But it's early in the season still, and on Lake Mohawk in North Jersey, there's still a lot of thin ice, thin enough for a dog to fall through. Hats off to Sparta police officer Michael Poon, who quickly threw on his ice rescue gear, crawled out on the ice, and had to get into the water to help get the dog out and safe. There were 2 dogs out there, Sunkiss and Bruno, but only Bruno fell in. It's a Christmas holiday, Guinness record in England. Dave Purchase, whose nickname is Mr. Toasty because he owns an on-toast sandwich shop, sang Christmas songs for 42 hours straight to break the old record by 2 hours. Don't know if he had any voice left at the end of it, but I'll bet you he's a little tired of Jingle Bells and All I Want for Christmas Is You by now. He sang 38 songs over and over, which you can sing 38 songs in an hour and change because they're mostly short little ditties. All in all, though, he sang 684 songs, kind of like karaoke, singing along with the computer. He was accompanied at times by a children's choir, by some of the local folk who just felt moved to sing along, and by a dementia choir. That's what they called it, a dementia choir of old folks. It's okay if you forget some of the words. Doesn't really matter. I guess that'll do it for today's Harley on the Headlines. I thank you for watching on YouTube, for listening on Spotify and elsewhere. Thank you, too, for helping to spread the word, liking, following, subscribing, sending an email to a friend. It all helps. I hope you have an outstanding day. Happy holidays. I'm Harley Carnes. We'll see you tomorrow.